Hey guys, Buzz Glover here with BizLoan Consultants. Thanks for joining me on video number 3 of the Success Path, a new tool that I've created for those of you interested in getting started in the business loan brokering business or commercial finance business. First, let me commend you. If you're watching this third video, it means that you're serious about getting started in the business, or if you've already started taking your business to another level. So I commend you and taking imperfect action, watching videos, getting up to speed on everything you need to know to get started is commendable. So I appreciate it. Just a couple things. Just to do a quick review, I'm going to go back on my magic whiteboard here and say this is what we covered in the first video. If I can get this to work. Actually, let me get that, go bigger there. This, in the first video, covered pretty much the mindset and the foundational things that you need to get out of the way when you're starting your business, and also got into education. Like I said, you don't have to need to know everything about every product that you are going to broker, but you should have some type of foundational things, and I cover that in the first video. So if you haven't watched it, go back and watch that. In the second video, I covered these two items in the Success Path. It's steps 18 through, I believe, 40. I taught you how to find deals and actually make it so, I call it the annuity method, where once you start getting referral partners, then you don't have to go out and keep trying to find new business every time you do a deal. It's a way to establish friendships in the business, make yourself known within a certain niche, and to continue to have business flow in as partners continue to trust you and you become a trusted advisor, which every good marketer wants to become. So, and I also teach you the ease of how to package a deal. You basically gather the same information, pretty much the same information. The framework's the same on every type of deal, and how to do a write-up. So I showed you that in the second video. In today's video, I'm going to show you, it's actually, I think, one of the more exciting videos. I'm going to show you these two areas: how to fund deals, how to find funding sources to match to the deals that you found, and also what it's like to hit a home run in this business and how you can be mindful of when these opportunities come. So that's kind of what I want to cover today. And before I do that, two things. One, you stayed to this video number 3. Once again, I commend you for doing that. But if you stick to video 4, I am providing a free download of this poster size Success Path, so you can actually pin it up in your office, or and you can just go through it step by step. So I'm also providing an 8.5 by 11 download, so if you don't want to go out and get it printed poster size. So stick around to the end. Make sure you go to video 4 to get that download. So with that said, let's get started. Real quick, I use this key legend here. Actually, this moved. Let me see if I can fix it. Actually, I use this key legend. Some of this got out of order here, but to kind of show you what's involved in each step and the difficulty of it. The top mark here is if it's something you have to do on a recurring basis. The check mark is something that you do to get done. You just do it and get done. The third one is there any investment on your part? And then these last 3 are just the difficulty level. Red being more challenging, yellowish orange being somewhat difficult, and green being something just get it done. So okay, now let's we got all the housekeeping out of the way. Let's get started on number 41 here. Actually, let me blow this up the whole way. Maybe I can do less editing later. So the very first step is to begin identifying funding sources and enter them into your CRM. So this is kind of an ongoing thing that you're going to continue to build this database of funding sources. A lot of people come to me and they say, hey, I want your funding source database. And the problem with that is that my funding source database might be different than what the business you're building. And what I mean by that is that I did 90%, 95% of all the transactions I did were equipment finance deals. So my funding source database is almost all equipment funding sources. And the other thing is, I actually, the story is a long story, but I actually did national type business. And then I kind of moved into just doing local business, and then kind of moved going back into national. So it's a long story. I don't want to get into it here, but the point I'm making is that a lot of the funding sources that I use and that I have in my database are local to the Pittsburgh area here. And as I go through these additional steps, you'll start to see some type of, you'll get some framework for how you're going to start choosing funding sources to match with the deals that you're finding. So, but the first step is to start identifying and make sure that you're putting them into your CRM system, HubSpot, that I mentioned earlier. So every time you talk to a funding source, take notes, find out, their footprint, which means what geography they cover, what rates they play in, what type of business they like, if it's equipment finance or if it's commercial real estate, or if it's even more secluded, like they really love doing crane business, or they really love doing certain types of business. You want to keep all those notes. So let's move on to number 42. Identify at least one national funding source for your A business. Now, this is something new that I've added in this training. The ideal situation is that you're going to have, what I mean by A credits is these are the credits that you're competing with the lower rate players. So, and in the beginning, as a new broker, it's much more difficult to identify a national funding source that has low rates. For the A business, for the companies that you go out, or the borrowers that you find that have really good credit. But there are some out there that will deal with new brokers that have some lower rates, and that holds true both in equipment finance and in commercial real estate. But the reason that I want you to find that kind of one go-to bank or funding source for your A credits is because I want you to be competitive as much as you can be for the good deals that come along, as well as just, most brokers play in the space of deals that have hair on them. So my point is that I'm going to try to help you go down that road, but you want to start looking at funding sources nationally that will do national business, that cover all 50 or all 48 U.S. states, that will allow you to be competitive for your better credits. Okay, number 43. Identify at least one local or regional bank for your A business. Same thing that I just talked about for your national funding sources. If you can find a local or regional bank that handles all your better credits and you partner with them, you're going to position yourself much later in your business for not only getting bad deals, but for getting good deals. Finding a bank that works with a broker closely is, I'm not going to say it's super hard, but it's not that easy. You kind of got to feel your way through. And by the way, I show you some techniques for when you're approaching funding sources. It's much easier. I'll just tell you, it's much easier if you have a deal on hand. If you just go out and start calling on funding sources without a deal on hand, there's a good chance you're not going to get return phone calls. But if you call them and you go through the bullet points on your write-up, you're much more likely to get a call back, because it piques their interest. It say, hey, this is a deal that I can fund. And keep in mind that all funding source reps have budgets. They have monthly and yearly goals on what they need to fund within their organization. So if they're trying to meet their goals, and if you're going to help them meet them, they're much more likely to call you back if you call them with a deal in hand. So, okay, so you've identified, you're going to start keeping these in your CRM. You're going to try to find a really good low rate player national. You're going to try to find a low rate player local. And let's move on to this one, 44. Begin identifying funding sources for your B, C, and D credits. Typically, these are going to be national funding sources. You're going to find them in some of the other videos that I've done, the free content that I put out there. I talk about the Scotsman Guide, and I talk about Equipment Leasing Association have a database, and I talk about the Monitor. There's a number of sources that you can go to start building this B, C, and D credit type portfolio. And the one great thing about being a broker is not only can you do A credits, but you can do B, C, and D credits. That's the one thing that got me started in this business. When I was working for a bank, I'd find them a ton of business. They would turn a bunch of it down, and then the business, all my efforts would go unrewarded. So you want to start identifying and putting those funding sources in your database as well. Once again, if you have a deal in hand while you're doing this, it becomes much easier because then you're much more likely to get a call back. 45, start creating relationships with commercial lenders for their declines. As you're talking to these banks and these funding sources, typically it's banks, especially in the local and regional banks, as you are talking to them and actually hopefully introducing them to some of the deals that you're submitting to them, you want to kind of create that relationship, make friends with them, and then at some point in that conversation, say, hey, Mr. Banker or Mrs. Banker, what are you doing with the deals that you decline? And you kind of want to get a reciprocal relationship. I'll send you deals if you send me my declines. In your first meeting, you don't want to bring that up, but eventually as the relationship unfolds, you want to start asking them for their declines, which is part of marketing. Okay, number 46. Start creating relationships with national lender reps for the niches you're in. Okay, so one of the questions I get quite often is, hey, I go into ABC dealership, whatever they're selling, and they already have a national funding source that they use for all of their deals. It might be Wells Fargo Bank, it might be Bank of America, whoever they've latched on to send all their A credits to. How am I going to earn that business? Most people run away from their competitors. They view these national funding sources as a competitor. I think that you should create a relationship with the rep within that dealership. What you might want to do when you're calling them, hey, oh, okay, you're using Wells Fargo. Who's your rep there? Is there any way that I can reach out to them and find out what they're doing with the business that they can't get approved? So once again, you want to kind of get more entrenched into the dealership you're trying to get referrals from, and also get referrals from that national funding source who is getting all their A credits. So you're kind of being more cooperative than competitive, and you want to get in and kind of form all these different relationships to start getting business that might not get done somewhere else. Okay, meet other brokers in your area and on Facebook and LinkedIn. I was always really good at kind of forming relationships with the other brokers in Pittsburgh. A couple guys come in mind. One guy has retired recently who I had a really great relationship with. And what I would do is when I found deals that kind of weren't in my sweet spot, I would typically bring this one guy especially into the fold because he could help me, and he also had funding sources kind of outside of my wheelhouse that he was aware of that I wasn't. It's another way, and I'm not saying to start poaching all the different funding sources that some other broker in your town has, but I think the thing that you should do is make friends with them. I frequently had lunches with this other broker in town, and I knew a few others that we've chatted, and through the years, I think that we become friends. Like I said, there was one in particular that I thought I had a good relationship with, and we've shared some deals together. So I think it's a good source for building that funding source database. Okay, number 48. Utilize the funding source cheat sheet for locating funding sources. I have a cheat sheet that I put together, and it's not really what I mean by cheat sheet is before I would give up on a deal, there were like 7 or 8 different resources that I could go to check to see that, hey, did I cover all my bases before I kind of give up on this deal? And I actually make that available to my mastermind students. I don't know that I'm going to make it available because I think it's a highly valuable resource, and I'm not sure that I want to give it out free. But you want to start developing a cheat sheet. What that a few things on that cheat sheet are the Scotsman Guide, the monitor for equipment finance, other brokers in town. So what I do is just have a system that would kind of eliminate each type of resource for a funding source before I kill a deal. And keep in mind, you're only, as a broker, you're only going to get probably 3 out of 10 deals approved. So you got to kind of take those losses. And if you're batting 300 or 400, which means 3 or 4 out of 10 deals are getting approved and you're getting funded, then you're doing well in this business. Okay, so that kind of covers how I view my funding source relationships. And I kind of gave you quite a few tips and tricks there, including making sure you have a deal in hand when you approach them. You don't always have to, but it certainly helps. And a bunch of other things that I think will help you when it comes to matching your funding source to the type of transaction that you're going to get. Okay, with that said, I want to move on to what I thought was important right up here. Hitting a home run in this business. Let me actually go back. If I shrink this down and I go right here, if you see these arrows here, let me get this big again. I guess it is already big. Right here, this area right here is the area that most brokers continue, and you'll continue to work, continue to try to find referral sources. Hopefully they're going to be sending you deals, which they will once you form those relationships. You package them, you send them off to banks, and you continue to do that circle. That's kind of the business in a nutshell. But what you need to be mindful of are opportunities that are out there that can make this business much easier. And what I mean is, one here, I'm going to use number 49 here. Begin identifying possible partners for manufacturing programs. I've seen it, and I've actually been involved in a couple of these where local manufacturers or manufacturer reps wanted me to come in and kind of run their whole equipment finance program, which means they now they're going to want to share revenues with you, which is fine if they're sending you enough business and it just automatically comes in every month. You want to be mindful of any type of local manufacturer that you can team up with to get all of their business. And you can actually position yourself as their partner in the business, and get all of their first looks and almost be like you're an employee of that company. Of course, you want to kind of quantify how much business they can send you and whether it's worthwhile for you to kind of be an in-house type financial rep for them. But this can take your business from here to up here very easily and have a pretty structured way of forming a partnership with a manufacturer or a local dealer to be their financial arm. So that's one area that I could see you taking your business from here to here and what I call a home run. The second thing is, let me go here. Right here, number 50. Develop programs for lease line of credits for big borrowers. I personally had an experience with this situation. Quick story, I was out having lunch with a referral source that I was trying to court to start earning their business. The lunch finishes, I walk outside the restaurant, and believe it or not, there's another referral source walking by on the sidewalk. Completely true story. He says, "Hey Buzz, I have a customer who's not happy with their current leasing source. Would you mind coming in and taking a look at this or doing a joint sales call with me?" By all means. And it was a Fortune 100 company. So immediately I'm thinking, I'm just a small, one-man brokerage. How am I going to compete for this business? Go in to this local Pittsburgh company that's huge, one of the top 100 companies in the world. And I sit down with them, and they're upset with their current source because they were doing what they call fair market value leases, true leases, where they would send the computer equipment back to the leasing company when they were finished with their 30 months. They're doing what they call a tech refresh program. Long story short is I sit there, I pull out, well, actually I think it was right while I was sitting with the customer, I see what rate that they're charging, and I look at what that rate is, and I'm thinking, and by the way, the company I was competing with was the very first company that hired me in equipment finance. I see what they are charging them, and I was like, oh, I can compete for this business. I knew that I could compete for it. It ended up being, and I want to shorten the story, is that I ended up doing millions and millions of dollars worth of business with this customer. I structured it in a way where I made them very happy. I satisfied all the problems that they were having with my old bank that I worked for, and it ended up taking my business from here up to here. So I just wanted you to be mindful of that and let you know that those types of opportunities will come to you. One last thing. A lot of times I say, hey, I got lucky in this business. And the truth is, luck is where preparation meets opportunity. I love that quote. Write that down. Luck is where preparation meets opportunity. At that point in my career and in my business, I had enough knowledge to know that I could compete for that business, win that business. And did I get lucky to do millions and millions of dollars with that company? Yes, I did, but I was prepared. And I think that you will run into these types of opportunities as well, but you just got to learn the business. So with that said, I am kind of done with video 3 here. And I look forward to seeing you in video 4. In video 4, I try to bring this all together for you. I'm going to show you how you can get some additional training on this. And also, I'm going to provide that download of the success path. So thanks again for joining me today. I appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing you in video number 4. Oh, and by the way, please leave your comments and questions down below. Be glad to answer any questions that you have about the business. And I look forward to you joining me in video number 4 of this mini series. Thanks again. Talk to you soon.